Day one of Baltimore Ravens training camp is officially in the books, and Baltimore's new additions starred. We talk about that, how Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers looked, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, bringing you that daily Ravens coverage. Plus, we have some bonus episodes on the weekend when the headlines permit. We go live after every single Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. We have the Ravens Squad Show live Mondays and Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. I want to thank all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have training camp. It is officially on. Day one of practice was yesterday, and here to talk about that and a lot more with me is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of MissileTraining.com, and also a member of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Q, it feels so good to have football back. I know you went through your fair share of training camps. Day one's a training camp. Was there always kind of a get back into football mode type of thing for you, or were you just ready to hit the ground running day one?
There is that anxious anticipation, probably maybe 2 or 3 days before camp. You've done it all. You're in shape. You're ready to go, but you want to test it all out. I mean, that's why you're there. That's why you're on professional football. You're less than 1% of the population to make it on a roster to get to training camp. And yeah, like it's about setting up your legacy of what do you want to do? What does your team look like? And for me, I can say that there's really been, one team in all my years of playing that had a losing record, and that year was miserable. That training camp, though, to the bigger picture of what you and I are talking about, but that training camp, like, it was the birth of my son. And so shout out to my son, Qadry Ismail, Qadry Josiah Ismail. So he's not quite the junior, but I picked out the middle name Josiah, and I was going to the Saints training camp. So here I am in shape, ready to go. Next thing you know, it's like his mom was like, "Oh, I'm ready to deliver." And I'm like, okay, here he comes. But it was, one of those things where life comes at you fast and you better be ready. I think for what we're seeing with, and we'll get into it obviously in the show, but with all the things with this Ravens ball club, it's, man, we got a team, we got a squad, we know it. I know John Harbaugh has said on one of the Raven content shows that, we're not talking about Super Bowl or bust. It's about the process and all that. We are talking about Super Bowl or bust because we recognize what pretty much he said. This is a veteran team. This is a team that already knows each other. But they've already been through all the fire. They've been through the trials. So, okay, what's there left to do? You and I spoke about it. The window, hey man, that thing only stays open but so long. And right now, the way the salary cap is constituted, like that window, this might be the final chapter of that window for this team. When you talk about Lamar Jackson and his contract, and there's a ton of other players that really are looking for their second contract that's going to be affecting the salary cap. So there's going to be hard decisions that are going to be made. We're excited for this training camp. It is Super Bowl or bust, but let's see how this comes out. And yes, day one is here.
Yeah, we might have to get you and Steve Bisciotti in a room with John Harbaugh to have you explain the now, is you love to say it, is right now for this Ravens team. And you're 100% correct. And in terms of it being like, the window being closed, I agree with you. And, Q, I know we're not talking about the window being closed for like Lamar Jackson winning Super Bowls. That's not what we're saying. It's more so like, a tight end room with Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kohler in it? Are you going to be able to re-sign it off Oweh? Like, rosters this stacked don't come often. It's a luxury to have it. Eric Acosta and company have done a great job building it. But when you build a roster this good that has stars, young talent, vet additions, it's hard to keep that year to year. So I want to see them make the most of this roster right now, like you talked about. And speaking of some of the veteran additions, training camp on day one, that was the name of the game. The new additions making an impact, particularly Jaire Alexander. He was the big name of day one of Ravens training camp. He had multiple pass breakups. He looked impressive according to reports, and he made an immediate impact. He had a leaping play down the sideline intended for Dayton Wade, and he has that patented seatbelt celebration. He's strapping in, locking up, and he did that. He made that very clear that, hey, we're going to be seeing a lot of those, a lot of seatbelts this year. And he also made a couple of other nice plays, and John Harbaugh made it a point to say with that play on the sideline, it's important on both sides of the ball to make plays on the outside throwing lanes in that part of the field. Games are won and lost in that area. And Q, I know you know a thing or two about making plays on the outside, down that sideline, and how important it is to win the margins there. Look, best news of the day for me was Jaire looking that good early on, especially coming in first day as a Raven. Obviously, he didn't participate in the spring practices. The Ravens need him to have an immediate impact, and I think this was about as good of a start as he could have had.
With Jaire, what we didn't know, and everybody else, was that the way in which he was balling was awesome, but he also had a ligament PCL injury that kind of hesitated, or I shouldn't say hesitated. He aggressively rehabbed to come back, but at the same time, they didn't give him the proper rehab and came back too soon, which then set him up to not be at his best. So by not being at your best, then you look like, age, this, that. He gets released. But I think now we get the version of him hungry to prove to everybody that, look, what y'all saw, which I think y'all saw, really wasn't it. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's get this thing going. And that's the start of the practice. That's veteran savvy. That's what you want. You want to see that veteran savvy come about. And so good kudos for him. Day one, set the bar high, but now we got the consistency that we need to look for, and we'll get into that as obviously camps roll on.
Yeah, and I think he fits in with the swagger that this Ravens defense has. Jaire certainly plays with that. I think, last year Nate Wiggins came in and immediately brought that as well, with him and Malik Neighbors. I remember that battle between them last season. Like, this Ravens defense plays with a certain swagger to it. They really have over the course of their franchise history. And there was another ball that he jumped at a wide receiver in press coverage, and then, he glared with confidence when the ball went somewhere else. So it's all right. Now the Ravens don't even want to test Jaire at this point because we know how good he can be. But another addition also made an impact, and that was DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop actually made a leaping back shoulder reception against Jaire Alexander on a tightly contested pass. And Alexander actually gave props to D-Hop. He did a little bow and then dapped him up at the end. So you see the mutual respect between those two already. So D-Hop was looking good out there, which was really nice to see. And, you and I both have talked about D-Hop, Q, in the sense of both of us loved what Nelson Aguilar did for the Ravens over the last 2 years. But I think that D-Hop does present an upgrade. He's a jump ball wide receiver that can go up there. He fits a skill set need that the Ravens have been looking for in the Lamar Jackson era for a long time. And while he is not the prime D-Hop that we saw in Houston, all pro this and that and the other thing, he is a very good complement to what the Ravens already have with Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman, and him making a very good first impression was something I was hoping he would do, and he certainly seemed to have delivered on that.
It's interesting because Odell Beckham Jr., or O as they affectionately call him on his inner circle, I think for O to come into camp, Todd Monken's offense, and literally it was a battle of Marlon Humphrey and him one-on-one and just dominate. Wow, it was beautiful. It's classic. I don't doubt D-Hop and his catch radius and his ability to make plays. I don't doubt any of that. that's that caliber of a guy. The reason why I bring up O is because towards the end of camp, he sustained a slight injury that set him back for the regular season. My thing is this. For you and I, yeah, we talk about these plays, and we're going to, clearly, Jaire Alexander, all that. But you're supposed to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, D-Hop, you're D-Hop for a reason. I want to see the sustaining through the season for him. So there's going to be certain guys that you're going to think, dang, Q, what's up? I'm not. Don't get me wrong. Like, mad respect, tip of the cap. But if I'm putting on my Steve Bisciotti hat, I'm talking about now. We ain't talking about next year. We talking about now. I brought your butt in here for now. And now ain't training camp. We know you were an alpha. We know you were, receiver one in Houston after taking over Andre Johnson, Hall of Famer. Like, we know you got those credentials. We want to see those credentials when it comes to the regular season.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll be able to make some big splash plays. I mean, I have confidence that he will, especially in the role that he is going to have. And again, like I talked about, Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman being there with D-Hop, I think makes a very, very formidable trio. And coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about how Zay looked as well as an update on the kicker competition. So stay tuned. We got a lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. This show is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football's back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years and love how smooth the draft day experience is, from player analysis, draft boards, and more. Yahoo Fantasy has it all, and it is incredible. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned to get started by creating or joining the Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with Kadri Ismail, breaking down all things from day one of Baltimore Ravens training camp. Q, no more speculating. We are now in it. These are real plays that are happening, real players that are making them. And I know that for Zay Flowers, the Ravens missed him tremendously during their 2-game postseason run after he suffered an injury in week 18. But Zay was one of the stars of practice on Tuesday. He caught a pass over the middle early in practice. He exploded into the open field, and it would have been a long touchdown had the game or the play actually counted. But then there was a bit of an injury scare for Zay. He ended up being in pain. He went down and grabbed for his foot and ankle later in practice, and he ended up getting checked out. But then he came back and returned and made several more catches, and he looked like his normal shifty self, apparently. And he was active throughout practice as well, including he wrestled a pass away from Trenton Simpson. So he was getting active, which was good. You never want to hear about a guy grabbing at the lower part of their leg, the ankle, the foot area, but seems like all is okay with him. And I'm glad he really picked up where he left off when he got injured, because the Ravens need him in a big way this year.
We know that a guy the caliber of Zay Flowers and the chemistry that he has with Lamar, it comes down to whether or not they're going to be healthy throughout the season. And him and Bateman, as the game went on, clearly he didn't play against Buffalo, but as the game went on, you even saw Bateman have, a little bit of issue with his foot and wasn't able to, finish and compete and all the things. And so health. And I'm glad that, he obviously came back out there. I think it shows a level of toughness. I know he's probably like, hey, I'm trying to get that contract extension too. Look what they're paying receivers. Hey, I got to do my thing. So there's a lot of incentive for him to get back out there. I'm hopeful, from a bigger picture standpoint, they, obviously going to give him treatment, but, what is the level of treatment that he needs? And is he going to be, one of those day-to-day camp things, or is it get some treatment, boom, all right, let's manage the inflammation, let's manage all the other issues, and he's fine, let's go.
Yeah, and I think the good news is that he was able to come back and still look like himself. But of course, you got to see how it kind of responds and how it's managed. So again, looks like he'll be fine, but just, I guess, something to monitor over the next couple of days to see if he's out there or not. Now, the kicking battle, Q, has been one of those things that everybody's talking about. And I know that a lot of people really don't view it as a battle because people expect Tyler Loop to win the job. John Hoyland is the other kicker that is in the running for this. And Tyler Loop had a couple of struggles, during the end of spring practices, heading into the break before training camp. Well, he responded in a big way on Tuesday. He went a perfect 6 for 6 on his kicks. Now, they were all from 40 and inside, so he didn't get any 50-yarders from Tyler Loop. John Hoyland, on the other hand, went 4 for 5. His one miss was from 40 yards. But hey, you know what? Regardless of if they're from 40 or in or 50 and out, a perfect day is a perfect day. I think that's a great way for Loop to respond. And, there are some kickers that wouldn't. Those struggles would linger and bleed into training camp. But credit to Tyler Loop for kind of blocking all that out, getting his mind right. And, the Ravens, we talked about it, Q. They're going to need him in a big way this season. And this is obviously the first step of many that he'll have to take. But I'm glad at least on day one he looked good.
So, for a kicker, consistency is everything. Hoyland is his name?
Yeah.
Okay. So I apologize because from a Hoyland standpoint, we got to let the kicking battle come about. And the times when I saw him, I was like, all right, whatever. I think that kicking battle will sharpen one of them. And if it is Tyler that right now has the edge because of the investment in him and they're expecting great things, then so be it. But I'm also saying if, in fact, Hoyland shows out, shows up, and Loop is not quite the guy, then, hey, the king is dead. Long live the king. Who's going to be taking over the throne? Let's see. So good start for Tyler. But like I said, one of the most heated and best practices that we should be watching, or periods in practice that we should be watching, is PAT and field goal. And if we're going down to joint practices coming up against the Colts and the Commanders, you cannot just speed bump over those. Those are super important practices to have, because Tyler Loop and Hoyland are going to go up against some other bodies, and them dudes are trying to make the team too. So that's going to be a really good, interesting view, in my opinion, coming up.
Yeah, it truly is one of the biggest storylines of training camp. Now, everybody wants to know about Lamar Jackson. So unofficially here from Jonas Schaefer of the Baltimore Banner, who, he does a really great job unofficially tracking Lamar Jackson and his stats throughout practices. Apparently, Lamar went 7 of 12 in competitive 11-on-11 work and 6 of 9 in 7-on-7 work. I have kind of summed up Lamar's day. I've seen it summed up as solid yet unspectacular, which, again, it was light on highlights according to Jonas here. He hit Zay on the crossing pattern in the 11-on-11 period, which we talked about would have been that catch and run. He had a connection with Justice Hill as well. Apparently, Jackson in the offense also had some pre-snap problems, having to regroup a couple times because of the formational issues or penalties that happened. And the consensus was the defense right now, it is ahead of where the offense is. But isn't that usually how it is throughout the first couple of days of training camp, Q? Doesn't it take some time for the offense to catch up to the defense, or am I crazy here?
I've never seen it where it's not been a defensive slanted scenario for training camp. You're supposed to be that next level defense. And if your offense, so I'll even say it this way, when we were in training camp, and I say when I was with the Indianapolis Colts, you had Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, myself, Reggie Wayne. You had Marcus Pollard, who was there, stud tight end. He was kind of Isaiah Likely-like of a player. And the offense was loaded to bear. We had a veteran offensive line, but yeah, the first 1 or 2 days, it was like, dang, y'all supposed to be good. Because it's just that's just the way it is. Like, there's no thinking. There's just reaction. There's like playing ball. Now, the thinking and the timing and the expectations and all those things come about when, day 4, day 5, and then boom, it just grows from there. So yeah, I can see where, everyone charts everything, and I love my colleagues, and I'm going to be out there again, and I'll be looking at all the practices myself again with a different lens, not with my dad cap on, but, just my Locked On Ravens cap, and that's it. WJZ, I'll get my WJZ cap on there too. But with that said, though, yeah, I think it's one of those scenarios, KO, that if your defense isn't coming out there balling, you got issues.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, with how good this Ravens defense is, or how good it's supposed to be this season, with the additions we talked about, Jaire and all the returning players, Malaki Starks and Mike Green in that rookie class. I mean, man, it is stacked top to bottom, and the offense is too. But it always feels like, yeah, as you said, the defense kind of gets out ahead early, and the offense catches up and it gets a little more even. But this honestly was what I was expecting. So while, it's never great to hear, oh, solid but unspectacular, or, the defense is better than the offense, it's iron sharpens iron, like it truly is, where the offense will be able to go up against this great defense in practice to prepare, and it's vice versa for the defense and the offense. So I'm pumped to see how it all turns out for the Ravens this season with that experience in camp. And coming up in the final part of the show, we'll get into a couple of more standouts from training camp, as well as talking about what Lamar Jackson and others had to say to the media after practice. So stay tuned. Got a lot coming your way on the show. First, the show was brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. And one thing I've gotten very serious about is saving my money. And Monarch helps me out a ton with that, especially when it comes to having everything I need in one place. That's been an absolute game changer for me. I had to go over here, go over there, go everywhere, but Monarch eliminates that for me, which is incredible. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Back here, Locked On Ravens, it is Kevin Oestreicher and it is Kadri Ismail, still breaking down everything from day one of Ravens training camp. Just a few quick hits here to talk about others that stood out. Lamar Davis apparently was good at practice. He had a pass breakup on a deep pass. He had another tightly contested play during 7-on-7 work where he walled off the receiver from the catch. Keaton Mitchell apparently looked really fast out there, and he's back to maybe what he looked like as a rookie, but he did apparently drop what would have been a long touchdown later in practice, and all these notes coming from Ryan Mink over at BaltimoreRavens.com. Other than that, there are a couple of other things that are worth reporting here, or at least worth bringing up here on the show, particularly the fact that, Cooper Rush hasn't looked super great really throughout all of the offseason for the Ravens here, Q. There were a couple of times on Wednesday where on one play action drop back, he threw over the middle to Tez Walker, who ran an in-breaking route, but the ball hung up in the air long enough, and that's where Lamar Davis came in, and he disrupted that play. Speaking of the defense being on top against the offense, Roquan Smith had his stuff against Derrick Henry. Now Dumatibike got involved as well. So just a lot of different names, a lot of different guys, and that's really what you hear, but I'm sure it'll be different guys contributing on different days, guys who maybe had slower starts, catching up in, the coming weeks. But for now, seems like a lot of players made impacts on day one.
It's interesting with Cooper Rush. I think the one thing that I look at and I'm curious. So in Dallas, I think a lot of that style of offense is more based on timing, getting rid of the football quickly. Okay, go through your reads. Here it is. He's an anticipatory thrower, so his arm doesn't have to necessarily be that strong to make throws because he's going to anticipate it. It's that, West Coast, almost pure West Coast type of a quarterback style. And that was the offense that worked for him. Mike McCarthy, he's a huge, West Coast kind of a offensive guy. Now you come into this offense, and I think it's an amalgam of different philosophies that, you cater it towards your quarterback. And Lamar Jackson is the type of quarterback that he doesn't need rhythm. He doesn't need timing on every single play that's called because he's so incredibly in of one that he can come to the line of scrimmage. Man, I think I'm going to give it to you right there. But because I see that the guy is right there, but you need to just move over, I'm going to hold the ball so you can move over. I don't give 2 cents less that Daniel Falele gave up a block coming right at me because I'm a whoop, whoop, dodge out that block. And you're going to be on the same page with me. Oh, by the way, that guy is Mark Andrews going in for a touchdown. So it's not ad-libbing. It's playing a level of football that has its plays, has its assignments, all those things. Let's not get it twisted here. And Lamar, I get weird. But I am saying, though, that it's a unique offense, and you got to be prepared to adapt to it. I'm curious what training camp will look like for him. And technically, I'm curious what the preseason games, because, training camp for a veteran like him is not that big a deal. I'm curious about the preseason games and what that entails for the likes of a guy like Cooper Rush, who has that, just game experience and how it's going to play out for him.
Yeah, and it was one of, honestly, Q, the more controversial decisions of the offseason in terms of the fan base. It was very split because they paid Cooper Rush, at least for a backup, a decent amount of money to come in. And, we've seen the Tyler Huntleys and the Josh Johnsons where, they were on cheaper contracts. And Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson, I think, more cater towards what the Ravens like to do on the offensive side of the ball. Cooper Rush obviously filled in for Dak at times and did well, but you mentioned it's different stylistically. And, I'm with you. I'm curious to see how that evolves throughout the course of training camp. But of course, Q, the best role Cooper Rush will have this year is to not play a snap or play during Ravens blowouts. That is what the Ravens need from Cooper Rush this season. Hopefully he will not have to be used in any way, shape, or form because, knock on wood, Lamar Jackson will have another healthy season. And Cooper's role will just be, hey, Ravens are up 30-9, go out there, Coop, and get a couple possessions in. That's what the big goal for Cooper Rush is. Devin Leary is another guy, though. Devin Leary is another guy that we could talk about in terms of the backup spot. So
yeah, we don't have to go ahead and just crown homeboy already. If I'm not going to crown Tyler Luke, you cannot just crown Cooper Rush. Okay? If I'm saying Hoyland, if I'm bringing him back into the lexicon, then in all fairness, you got to do me a solid and bring Devin Leary back into the conversation as well.
Okay, all right, that's a deal. Nothing is guaranteed. Everything is earned. All right, that's how we'll do this. That's how we'll do this. All right, you got yourself a deal. We got a battle now at the backup quarterback position. You heard it here first on Locked On Ravens. But Lamar Jackson, Q, he spoke to the media. He was very adamant about the fact that Jaire Alexander is still that guy. He's still really good, and he ended up that was the play where D-Hop, he had the back shoulder thing that was just a bit out of bounds. It was a great catch, but it was very complimentary of his former college teammate.
It was out of bounds.
Apparently he was just barely ruled out. Barely ruled out. Barely.
It was out of bounds. So nowhere in the history of the NFL has ever completed a ball that went out of bounds. So, are you a little bit pregnant? No. You either are or you not. Don't be a little bit, it was a great catch, but it was a little bit out of bounds. The thing was an incomplete pass. Great catch, incomplete, move it on. Go ahead.
Well, maybe I'm going to make a rule change. And if a play is almost out of bounds and it looks cool enough, it'll be considered a catch. That's how we'll do it now when we get the new rules in for the NFL. But you're right. You know what? I'll give it to you, Q. You're 100% correct. It could look cool. It's a great catch, but counts for zero yards nonetheless. But Lamar also talked about the fact that he's not trying to think that far ahead to a Super Bowl. I mean, that's the big conversation around the Ravens right now. We know that it's Super Bowl or bust. This roster is amazing, but Lamar, he wants to take it really day by day, essentially, is what I got from him. He said he's trying to finish camp the correct way, get ready for the Bills in week 1. He's evaluating himself. Thought he could have done better last season. And, he said the big quote from him that I think is getting traction here is, I'm only 28. I'm really just getting started. And, we've heard the comparisons, for Lamar with Peyton Manning, who won his first ring when he was 30 years old. Took him some time to get that championship. I think Michael Jordan, that's been circulating. He won his first ring when he was 28 years old. So, some of these all-time great quarterbacks, it doesn't always go the way of Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, where you just win in the first couple years and that's the standard. It's not always that way. It doesn't mean that Lamar's not a great quarterback. It doesn't mean Lamar's never going to win a Super Bowl, but it's about mindset and timing. And I think this year, the timing feels right. Will it be? They got to play the games. We don't know. But it feels like the Ravens are setting themselves up, and Lamar is having the right mindset about it, and I think the rest of the team is following suit with it.
Yeah, of course. And to the point of when it's time, as far as the timing, and you mentioned Peyton Manning, I think for him, he had to kind of get through some of his own demons. He did, and the team itself was built to go and do it. Michael Jordan, he had to get through his demons of the Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics, and he did, and the rest was on to the next thing. I think for Tom Brady, if you recall, like that early dynasty was the Patriots defense, and so it was more along the lines of Tom Brady playing, just Bill Belichick type of offense. I'm not going to put myself in any harm's way. Let's, let the defense go out there and do what it does. But then, yes, you look at what he did, clearly winning it the last, 4 of the 7. It was him putting it on the team on his shoulders, and off he went. So I think Lamar Jackson, yes, he is in those conversations because he's that style of a dynamically talented player. And yes, grace is given. We just know that Steve Bisciotti put this team together with EDC and with the mindset of now. So we know that he's young, but now is where we're looking at, because we know that Steve Bisciotti ain't young, and he's like, hey, I ain't trying to be Jerry Jones. I'm trying to get another one now.
Yep. We know that's the goal for them. This is a big year for the Ravens, and honestly, the most important year of the Lamar Jackson era, in my opinion. So day 1 of training camp in the books. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow talking about day 2 and everything that happened. Q, I appreciate you hopping on and joining me. Please, before you head out of here, tell people where people can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, so we got missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can go interact with me if you're looking for human movement and sports performance training. Just finished off 2 really awesome courses, one in some great, amazing recovery work. Talk to me about that. If you have some sports nagging injuries that you want to get stretched out, worked out, I can help you along those lines. Also, on the flip side of things, got a awesome tool that I know goes into the missile training arsenal when it comes to your speed development, your ability to quantifiably see what your speed development looks like. So missiletraining.com for all that. Doesn't matter if you're a team, doesn't matter if you're an individual. From 6 all the way up to 85, I got you covered. At the same time, you can also see me on WJZ. WJZ, we're about to kick off the season as well. It's going to be fantastic. Going to love the new energy that we're going to be doing. I think you're going to love the shows. And at the same time, when it comes down to it, each and every week, it is Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and I, we just sit back, we talk shop, we break it down here, as well as our Squad Ravens show. So Sam Ojoku, he and I, we break it down. Technically, here's the thing. Kevin Oestreicher is just so brilliant that sometimes he just lets us go. He's like, oh, fellas, that is such a bad take. Let me give you a better take. But it's cool because the the squad show gives us a chance to all go back and forth and get our thoughts and opinions in. We have a lot of fun. Check us out over there as well.
Yeah, that's what I love about the three of us on the squad shows. We just go back and forth, and sometimes Q doesn't agree with my number 4s on top 5 lists, but you know what? That's why we all have differing opinions, so we can have those conversations. So Q is awesome. Be sure to go support his work. All the links to his work in the description down below. Q, appreciate you as always, and thank you to everybody who watched and listened to the show today. We'll be back here tomorrow breaking down more Ravens football, more Ravens training camp updates. So on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.